my name is Professor Rad, and in this video we'll be talking about number periods. So in our last video we learned about natural numbers and whole numbers and what those numbers are. So in this video we're going to be talking about really big numbers and how we name really large numbers. So let's start out with a definition and a note. As always, if you ever want to pause the video to copy these things down before we talk about them, feel free to do so. So now would be a good time to do that. All right, so let's start out with this definition. So a period is a group of 3 digits separated by a comma. So when we have a whole number, we're going to start naming our periods, moving from the right to the left. Okay. So if I have this giant number here and I want to know what are the periods of this number, like look how many digits that has. I'm going to start out on the right-hand side with 175, and we're going to call this the ones period. Now, if I think about getting rid of all of this, and if I just had this 8 here, you might know what number this is, right? This would be 8,175. So the next period we look at is that thousands period. So we would have said 8,000, blah, blah, blah. So this is going to be the thousands period. So when you think of like these big groups of numbers, we did skip 10 and 100, but we'll get to those in the next video. But when you think of, we've got our thousands, and then you have millions and billions and so on. So those are period names. So our next period, this one here, is going to be the millions. This next group of 3 is the billions. And then this next grouping is the trillions. Now you might be wondering, Professor Ed, wait a minute. It says that a period is a group of 3 digits, and this one over here only has 2. So why are we breaking the rules here? So when we have these groupings of 3, if you don't have 3 digits there, there's secretly a 0 in the front, right? Think about when your clock says that it's 2 o'clock. Right? It might have a 0200. So like older digital clocks will have something like that written out. So that 02, we know that that just means 2. So when we say a group of 3 digits, sometimes there's an invisible 0 in front. Sometimes there might be 2. So if you have like 1 trillion, it would be 001. But like here we have 8,000 because there's these 2 zeros in front of the 8. So these periods are going to help us write the name of the number. Before I do that, I should mention there are, you can have an infinitely long number, so there are like infinitely many periods. These are the most common ones we see, right? If you were to go on, you would have quadrillion and then anything quintillion, sextillion, septillion, octillion, and so on. So biggest we'll get for this course is a trillion, which I think is more than plenty for our purposes. So the way that we use these periods is how we say the number. So you say the number in the period, followed by the period name. And even though we named the periods starting from the right and going to the left, when we say the name of the number, we start on the left and move to the right. So the way that I would say this number would be 54 trillion, 617 billion, 934 million, 8,000, 175, and then I don't say the ones at the end. That's just like the exception to the rule. So let's go ahead and see if we could write that out. So let's start out with the 54 trillion. So we have 54, and that's in the trillions period. So I'm going to call this an example, how we would write this out. So 54, let's make sure I spell it properly. So 54, whenever you have a dum-de-dum kind of number, that's how I think of it. So like 54, 78, things of that nature. You want to make sure they're hyphenated. So we have 54 trillion. And then because there's a comma in the number, we'll put a comma here. Then we look at this number here. So, so this is 617. So we will write 617. And this is in the billions period, so we'll write out billion. Put in a comma. Then when I look at these 3 digits, this is 934. So we'll write out 934. Now, 34 is one of those dumpty-dum kinds of numbers, so it will be hyphenated. 34. 934 is in the millions period, so we'll put million, comma. Now here we have 008, so this is just 8,000. Almost done. And then we have 175, so this is 175. Oh, put in my comma, 175 is a dumpty-dum, kind of has that rhythm. So we have 70 hyphen 5. And when we get to the ones period, we just don't write the name at the end. So if I came across this number in the wild, I would say it as 54,617,934,008,175. Two comments I want to make about how I've written this number. Notice that although the period is given in a plural, in the name it's given singular. Okay? So the name of this period is the trillions period, but when I write 54 trillion, I don't write trillions. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is notice that the word and doesn't show up at all. So I didn't say, for example, 934 million. This is because we're going to reserve the and for a decimal point in the future. So when we're writing out the name of a whole number, we do not use the word and, because that's going to indicate where a decimal point goes in the future. All right, so that's going to wrap up this example and this video. We'll see some more examples of writing large numbers in the future. But in the next video, we're going to break down each of these periods into even smaller things. And we're going to call those things place values. So I hope this helped break down periods a little bit for you. And I will see you next time. Bye for now.